Let me ask you something, and just be honest with yourself for a moment. You've been doing the things they told you to do. You eat less than you used to. You skip the bread. You skip the dessert. You keep an eye on the scale. Maybe you've even lost a few pounds. And yet, you don't feel stronger. You feel softer. You get up from your chair and there's a little hesitation that wasn't there a few years ago. You carry the groceries in from the car and your arms tire faster than they should. You climb the stairs and now you actually notice your legs. And here's the part nobody warned you about. The scale says you're doing well. The number is going down. So you assume you're winning. But your body is quietly telling you a very different story. I'm going to say this plainly because almost no one says it to people our age. After 60, chasing weight loss can be a trap. Because the weight you're losing may not be the weight you think it is. It might not be fat at all. It might be muscle. And that one difference changes everything. Muscle isn't about vanity. It's not about how you look in the mirror or in an old photograph. After 60, your muscle is the thing standing between you and the future you're most afraid of. It's what lets you get up off the floor on your own. It's what keeps you out of a walker. It's what protects you when you trip. So you catch yourself, instead of falling and breaking something that never quite heals the same way again. And when you lose muscle without knowing it, you don't feel sick. You just feel a little weaker each season, a little slower, a little more careful, until one day you catch yourself avoiding things you used to do without a second thought. If any of that landed a little too close to home, stay with me, because the rest of this is not bad news. It's the opposite. Here's the only promise I'm going to make in this entire video, because I refuse to insult you with miracle claims. I'm not selling anything. There's no pill waiting at the end of this. There's no secret powder. What I am going to give you is an explanation that finally makes sense of what you've been feeling, and a small handful of simple, ordinary, affordable habits that your own body already knows how to respond to. Things you can start this week with food that's probably already in your kitchen. No gym, no expensive supplements, no punishing routine that some 25-year-old dreamed up for a body that isn't yours. And by the time we're done, I want you to feel one specific thing. Not fear, not pressure. I want you to feel like the wheel is back in your hands. So let's start with the trap itself, and why it was never your fault that you fell into it. For about 40 years now, we've all been taught the same simple equation. Health equals weight. Lower the number, win the game. And for a younger body, honestly, that isn't entirely wrong. But something shifts after 60 that the diet industry never bothered to explain to any of us. Starting somewhere back in our 30s, the body slowly begins to lose muscle, quietly, a little each year. By some estimates, we can lose a meaningful amount of it every decade, and after 60, that loss tends to pick up speed. It even has a name in the medical world. They call it sarcopenia. But most people live inside it for years before they ever hear that word spoken out loud. Now here's where the trap snaps shut. When you cut your food, when you simply eat less to drop the number, your body doesn't only reach for fat. If you're not careful, and if you're not giving it the right signals, it will burn muscle right alongside the fat. Sometimes more muscle than fat. So the scale goes down. You feel proud. But underneath that number, you've been quietly trading away the very tissue that keeps you standing on your own 2 feet. You won the number, and you lost the war. And I want to be gentle here because I know exactly how this feels. You didn't do anything wrong. You followed the advice you were given. You trusted the people who were supposed to know better. The problem was never your discipline. Your discipline is probably the very reason you're still here, still trying, still watching something like this. The problem was the target. You've been aiming at the wrong enemy this whole time. And if no one has ever told you that before, if hearing the words, "It's not your fault," actually lands for you right now, do me one small favor before we go on. Reach over and tap that like button. Not for me. Do it for the person out there, someone your age, who has been quietly blaming themselves for years because YouTube is far more likely to put this in front of them if you do. That's honestly the only way people like us manage to find each other on here. All right, now let me show you why muscle matters so much more than that mirror ever let on. Think about everything you actually want for the years ahead. When you strip it all down, most of it comes back to one quiet word: independence. You want to stay in your own home. You want to lift your own grandchild without bracing yourself first. You want to walk into a room without quietly scanning it for something to hold on to. You want to be the one who helps, not the one being helped. None of that is about being thin. Every bit of it is about being strong. And here's what the diet world never told you. Your muscle isn't just there to move you around. It is one of the most active, hardest working tissues in your entire body, even while you're sitting perfectly still. Your muscle is where a great deal of your blood sugar goes to be used up. Healthy muscle acts like a sponge. It soaks the sugar out of your blood and keeps things steady. As that muscle fades, the sponge shrinks. And suddenly, the same meal you've eaten your whole life starts pushing your numbers in a direction you don't like. People spend years fighting their blood sugar, blaming their plate, never once being told that part of the answer was the muscle they'd been quietly losing. Your muscle is also your reserve. Think of it like a savings account your body can draw on. If you ever get sick, a bad flu, a fall, a stay in the hospital, a surgery, your body burns through muscle to carry you through it. The person who walks in with more in that account walks out faster, stronger, and far more likely to go home instead of somewhere else. Not everyone will frame it that way for you. But the ones who've watched it happen for 30 years know it's true. And your muscle is your shock absorber. It's what fires in a fraction of a second when your foot catches the edge of a rug. Strong legs and a strong grip mean you stumble, and then you recover. Weak ones mean you stumble, and then you're on the floor. And we both know that for someone our age, a single bad fall can quietly rewrite the rest of a life. So when I say muscle is your independence, I mean it in the most literal way there is. It is the difference between living on your own terms and living on someone else's. Now, here's the question that probably just crossed your mind. How do I know if this is already happening to me? You don't need a clinic. You don't need an expensive scan. Your own body has been leaving you clues for a while now, and once you know what they are, you won't be able to unsee them. The first one is the chair. The next time you stand up from a low, soft seat, pay attention. Do you rise in one smooth motion? Or do your hands reach for the armrests before you've even decided to? Do you rock forward once or twice to build a little momentum? That small push off the arms is one of the earliest and most honest signals there is. The second is your grip. The strength of your hands tells a surprising story about the strength of your whole body. If jars are harder to open than they used to be, if your hand tires while writing a letter or holding a book up to read, that isn't only your hands getting older. That's often the whole system speaking through them. The third is the stairs. Not whether you can climb them, but how you feel halfway up. That little burn, that pause to gather yourself that you never used to need, that's your legs telling you something quietly. And the fourth is recovery. After you've done something physical, a bit of yard work, a longer walk, carrying something heavy up from the car, how long until you feel like yourself again? An hour? A day? 2? The longer it takes, the more your reserve has thinned without your permission. Now, please, be kind and be safe as you notice these things. If you test the chair, do it right next to something steady. Don't go chasing your own balance just to prove a point. The goal here isn't to frighten you, and it certainly isn't to diagnose you. It's simply to wake up the part of you that's been brushing these signals aside, hoping they'd pass on their own. Because they don't pass on their own. But, and this is the entire reason I'm sitting here talking to you, they absolutely can be turned around, at almost any age, with far less than you've been led to believe. Before I show you exactly how, I want to do something I do in every one of these videos, because the people who gather here have quietly become a kind of community, and I'd genuinely like you to be part of it. Pause for just a moment and leave a comment with 3 things: your age, where in the world you're watching from, and which of those 4 signs, the chair, the grip, the stairs, or the recovery, hit closest to home for you. I read these. And more importantly, other people read them too. There is something powerful that happens when a 74-year-old in Ohio scrolls down and sees a 74-year-old in Scotland saying, "Me too." You realize you were never the only one. You realize you're not behind. You're just finally paying attention. And paying attention is the bravest thing a person can do at our age. So go ahead. Your age, where you're watching from, and the sign you noticed. I'll be down there reading. Now, let me show you the single biggest mistake that's been draining your muscle for years without you ever once realizing it. Aqui vai a parte 3. Texto corrido. Cobre o erro número 1. Proteína de menos e na hora errada com os alimentos baratos. O movimento que reconstrói sem esgotar e traz a CTA de inscrição costurada por reciprocidade. For a lot of people our age, it's the exact opposite. The biggest mistake is that you're not giving your body the one ingredient it actually needs to hold on to muscle in the first place, and that ingredient is protein. Now stay with me here, because this matters more than it sounds. When we're young, our bodies are generous. You can feed them just a little protein, and they'll happily build and repair muscle from it. But as we age, that generosity fades. The body becomes a little hard of hearing. It takes more protein and a more deliberate amount just to get the same message across. Researchers even have a name for this. They call it anabolic resistance. In plain English, it means an older body needs more protein than a younger one to do the very same job, and yet most people eat less of it as they age, not more. So watch the trap close again. Less appetite, smaller meals. A piece of toast and a cup of tea in the morning, a little soup at midday, maybe one proper meal at dinner, if there's the energy left to cook it. By the end of the day, you've barely handed your muscle anything to work with, and then you quietly wonder why it keeps slipping away. Here's the gentle shift that changes everything, and it costs you almost nothing. Stop saving all your protein for dinner. Spread it across the day, and especially, give your body a real, honest amount in the morning. Your muscle responds best to a steady signal at each meal, instead of one big push late at night when your whole system is already winding down. And this does not mean expensive cuts of meat or fancy powders from a health store. Some of the best, cheapest protein on this earth is probably sitting in your kitchen right now. Eggs, a tin of sardines or tuna, a carton of plain Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, a simple glass of milk, beans and lentils simmered down into a soup. A little of these, worked into your breakfast and your lunch instead of only your supper, can do more for your strength than anything on a pharmacy shelf. Now, I want to be honest with you, the same way I'd want someone to be honest with me. If you've been told you have kidney trouble, if your doctor keeps a close eye on your creatinine, then how much protein is right for you becomes a real and personal conversation, and it's one to have with them, not with a stranger on the internet. I would never want a video to talk over the person who actually knows your blood work. For most healthy older adults, the real danger is far more often too little protein than too much. But you know your own body. Honor that. And by the way, if this is the first time someone has bothered to explain the why to you, instead of just handing you a list of orders, then think about walking this road with me for a while. Subscribing isn't about a number on my screen. It means that the next time I sit down to talk through something nobody else is bothering to explain to people our age, you'll actually be told about it, instead of the algorithm quietly deciding you've seen enough and moving on. That's all it is, a standing invitation to keep showing up. Now, food is only half of the equation. The other half, and I promise this is far simpler than you're afraid it is movement. But not the kind of movement you're picturing. Here's the truth the fitness world tends to bury. You do not rebuild muscle by exhausting yourself. You don't need a gym. You don't need to sweat through an hour of something that leaves you sore for 3 days afterward. In fact, for a body our age, that approach often does more harm than good. Muscle is built by gently asking it to do a little more than it did yesterday, and then giving it the rest it needs to come back stronger. That's the entire secret. A little resistance, a little recovery, repeated patiently. And the single most powerful exercise you can do is one you already do dozens of times a day without thinking. Standing up out of a chair. That's it. Sit, then stand slowly and under control, letting your legs do the work instead of your hands. A few of those, a couple of times a day, right next to something steady you can hold if you need it. And you are directly training the exact muscles that keep you living on your own. No equipment, no cost. Never leaving the house. From there, it's small things. A gentle push against the wall, like a standing push-up, to wake the arms and chest back up. Carrying your own groceries in instead of letting someone do it for you, and feeling that as training, not as a chore. Rising up onto your toes at the kitchen counter while the kettle boils. Walking, yes, but walking with a little purpose in your step, not just a slow shuffle around the block. The magic was never in the intensity. It lives in the consistency. 5 honest minutes a day, done faithfully for a month, will do more for you than 2 punishing hours that scare you off the whole thing forever. So start absurdly small. So small it almost feels silly. That isn't weakness. That's wisdom. That is exactly how a body our age comes back. And if anything ever hurts in a sharp, wrong way, stop and check with someone who knows your body. Soreness is a teacher. Pain is a warning. Learn the difference between the two and respect it. Now, there's one last piece left, the quiet one, the piece that ties the food and the movement together and decides whether any of this actually takes hold. Aqui vai a parte 4, texto corrido. Fecha com o elo silencioso, descanso e sono, o bloco de credibilidade construído por experiência vivida, não por autoridade clínica. E o encerramento emocional com pergunta de reflexão, CTA suave e a CTA final de comentário, deixando o público com a sensação de eu ainda tenho controle sobre minha saúde. It's built in the hours afterward, while you're resting, while you're sleeping. That gentle bit of effort during the day is only the invitation. The actual rebuilding happens later, in the quiet, which means your sleep is not lazy time, it is construction time. When you sleep poorly, and so many of us do as we get older, your body loses its best window to repair the very muscle you work to protect. So guarding your rest is guarding your strength. A steady bedtime, a dark, cool room, going a little easier on the late-day coffee. These aren't soft, throwaway suggestions. They are part of the build. And there's one more thing that rest quietly protects, something we don't talk about nearly enough: your mind. The same steady habits that hold on to your muscle tend to hold on to your clarity, too. Steady blood sugar, real movement, true rest. Your body and your brain were never two separate machines. They age together, and they can be cared for together. When people tell me they fear losing their memory even more than losing their strength, I tell them the honest truth. A great deal of what's good for the one quietly turns out to be good for the other. So here is the whole picture, simpler than anyone ever made it sound for you. Give your muscle enough protein, spread through the day. Ask it to do a little gently on most days. And then let it rest and rebuild. Food, movement, recovery, 3 plain things, no miracle, no expense, no permission needed from anyone. Now, you might be wondering why you should trust any of this, and I respect that completely. You've been promised the moon before, by people in white coats and people selling bottles, and you've watched far too many of those promises quietly turn into nothing. So let me tell you plainly where this actually comes from. I'm not here to dazzle you with letters after my name. What I'll tell you instead is that none of this is new, and none of it is mine. This isn't some breakthrough discovered last Tuesday. The understanding that older bodies need more protein, gentle resistance, and real rest to keep their strength. That has been sitting quietly in the research for decades. It simply never made anyone much money to tell you, because you can't bottle a chair you stand up from, and nobody can patent an egg. And I have watched this up close, in people I love. I've watched someone strong slowly stop trusting their own legs, and I've also watched people in their 70s and 80s, who decided it simply wasn't too late, earn a real measure of that trust back, not on a magazine cover. just in the ordinary, quiet dignity of standing up on their own. That is the only authority I'm claiming here. I've seen which way this goes, in both directions. And I would so much rather you went the better way. So let me leave you with the one thought I most want you to carry out of here. For a long time now, you may have quietly believed that your body was simply running down, that this was just age, and there was nothing to be done but watch it happen and brace yourself for it. I need you to really hear me. That was never the whole truth. You weren't broken. You were aiming at the wrong target. And the moment you turn and face the right one, your strength instead of the scale, a great deal of what felt like decline turns out to be something you still have a hand in. You are not a passenger in this. You never were. So here's the question I'd love for you to sit with for just a moment before you go. Not, how much weight do I want to lose? But this. What is the one thing I most want to still be able to do for myself 5 years from now? Carrying your own bags in from the car, getting down onto the floor to play with a grandchild and back up again, walking into your own kitchen and cooking your own dinner. Hold that picture in your mind, because that, not a number on a scale, is what we are really protecting here. And once you have it, do this for me. Go down to the comments and finish this one sentence. 5 years from now, I still want to be able to write it out. Say it somewhere others can see it. Because the people who put it into words are the very ones who tend to go and do it. And your words might be the exact thing that nudges someone else to believe it's still possible for them too. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You only have to pick one small thing from today. One honest breakfast, one slow stand-up out of the chair, and begin. The person you are today is the youngest you will ever be again. And that isn't a sad thought. It's the most hopeful one there is. Because it means the best time to start was years ago. And the second best time is right here. Right now. Today. With me. Take good care of that body of yours. It's the only one you'll ever get, and it has carried you faithfully this far. The very least we can do is give it a reason to keep going strong. I'll see you in the next one.